Kicked out my SIL and her family for leaving bloodied sanitary products around my house. Now my in-laws are demanding I take them back. My husband has 2 brothers and 1 sister. His sister and her husband are not my favorite people in the world. Recently they have been couch surfing as they lost their home. Long story which could have been avoided if they had adulted like they should have. First they stayed with my in-laws, but they used the excuse that my Phil has diabetes to get rid of them and their rowdy children. Next was his older brother and his wife. They had 2 spare rooms as 2 of their older children moved out a year ago, and they only have the 6-year-old and their 13-year-old twins at home. After 3 weeks they had to move out due to a planned refurbishment. They were happy with them as they were generally tidy and helped out in the home. The youngest brother was the next to take them in. While my SIL was there, she helped out in the home and kept her children on a leash. The youngest brother's wife is very house proud, and she allowed them to stay for a limited time only as they have had a baby recently and her mother will be staying with them to help out for the first 6 months. Then they emotionally manipulated my husband to say okay. I agreed to it on the condition that she and her husband as well as their children keep the place clean, because in the past the only place they are messy in is my home. For example, if they are throwing something into the kitchen bin, they will throw it in the general direction of it and not in the actual bin. It's extra gross when it's food stuff that dries up and stinks out the place. Similar things happened in the past where she would leave her sanitary towels on top of the bin lid in the bathroom instead of in the bin. Her oldest daughter started her periods recently and I asked the younger brother's wife how things were for tidiness. She said she had no complaints. They went to bed on time and kept the place clean. However, they were there for only 2 weeks. They are always tidy at the other houses. I know this from experience too. During Christmas and summer holidays when we stay over at each other's places, I have seen the difference in how they are at my place and the other places. Before they moved in, I made the younger brother and my parents-in-law's witnesses to them agreeing to keeping my house as clean as it is and to chip in with chores. If they broke the rules they would be out immediately. She fussed and denied past wrongdoings but said as you wish, your highness, sarcastically. The first 5 days were smooth sailing. This morning I found a sanitary towel on top of the bin and not even wrapped properly. That is not all. Her daughter is staying in my daughter's room and she made a mess of the shampoo and conditioner in her bathroom and had left a tampon on the side of the sink, forgetting it from last night. Her husband leaves early for work and the kitchen was a mess when I finally got downstairs. I have a curious toddler and I don't want him to pick up a bloodied sanitary towel. I knocked on the guest room and told her to pack her shit and get out. She looked angry and tried to play innocent. She said it was only some blood and to chuck it in the bin if it bothered me so much. I told her no and picked up her suitcase, throwing their stuff in it. At first she wouldn't leave the house, saying she was going to wait for her brother as she doesn't take orders from me, but I told her this house belongs to me too. I dropped her and her youngest ones off at my in-laws. A few hours ago her husband came back from work and when I wouldn't let him in he made a scene. He went to my in-laws, but they don't want them there due to Phil illness. When my husband returned from work, my in-laws turned up in our driveway with her and her family within 20 minutes. They are still standing outside and squabbling about being let in. I refused to open the door and told my husband if he backs down he isn't welcome in our home either. So, the family thinks Ada because I have never liked her and am using any excuse to get rid of her. Comments: mobile_prune_3207. I would have taken photos of the sanitary items left out, and sent it on a giant group chat saying anyone who thinks you're a monster for having a problem with this is more than happy to come and clean it themselves, or host the family themselves. NTA. Deleted. Jesus. Do you know the ramifications of medical waste? Lord have mercy. That's aggressively gross. I can't. Just can't. Mobile_prune_3207. I used to work for a surgeon, so I've seen some pretty gross things, but even this is hugely disgusting. Lady Karu, clearly she's doing it on purpose because she doesn't like you. There's no way that they are perfect guests everywhere else but wreck your house without it being intentional. Critical_lemon_4072 op. That is exactly what I told my husband. He says maybe excuse them this once and if they do it again give them consequences. Alternative item 747. No, not only will she do it again but it gives them proof they can manipulate him into going against you. External_expert_2069. Nope. You don't want them to claim squatters' rights or something and be stuck with them. You were clear on the rules. Tarzan Kitty, NTA. It should have been done the second the bitch called you your highness. Stiffks, see, this right here is the problem. Being sarcastic just now lost you the right to stay at my house. Good luck and fuck off, should have been the appropriate response. Kathleen, you don't have a SIL, you have a husband problem. It sounds like your husband would be okay with your toddler picking up a used tampon and taking a taste, like toddlers do. There is a good chance they were not cleaning up after themselves at the other homes. Because there was a very convenient pre-existing disease, then a refurbishment, then another family member staying for 6 months. I'm willing to bet the others lied to you so you would be stuck with her. Her choice to fuck around and find out. NTA. Update 1. Yesterday my driveway looked like a scene from some Mexican standoff. They were out there discussing the matter while I refused to go out and engage. After 2 hours, yes 2 whole hours, they left. They are currently at my in-laws, but they made a promise to return to discuss the matter tomorrow as everyone will be home from work, and that way we could all find a workable solution. Well, at least that is what my husband relayed. When my husband got inside, I told him that I would not have them in my house. I told him that he could clean up after them. Which he did. After cleaning up, he asked me why I made him do that. I told him I was just as grossed out over other people's bodily fluids as he was, and unlike him I wasn't biologically related to them. So if he found it unsavory, imagine how shitty I felt in the past cleaning up after them. He promised to buy a new bin and bleach the sink 3 times. Our strategy for tomorrow is that under no circumstances are they coming to live with us. His niece will be made to clean up the bathroom shampoo and conditioner mess. He left that part for her. In the meantime, our daughter can use our shower. We'll see how this turns out tomorrow. Comments: Imshker, good. Stand your ground on this. Sounds like SIL wants to mess with you and has instructed her daughter to do the same. And WTF, why is your husband asking why he should clean? The question should be why he thinks you should? Cortade, more like her daughter has learned the bad manners from her mom. She's just following in mom footsteps. Beck 2010, if I were you, I would not let the niece back into the house. Yes, she made the mess, but the whole point is to get them out. Not let them back in to clean. Bite the bullet and clean up the niece's mess. No reason to re-enter your home if the mess is taken care of. Have hubby clean up the mess. SK 1999 SK. I agree, do not let the niece in to clean. Your in-laws will use it as a way to get in. Pay a professional service to clean your daughter's bathroom and hand a copy of the bill to Bill and SIL. Obviously they won't pay you back, but let them know if any relatives try to get you to take them in again. You will share pictures and a copy of the bill via text, WhatsApp or whatever social media family uses. They are so disgusting I would never allow them in my home and would trespass them from my property. The _crown _ anchor. I had a buddy who was temporarily homeless for about 6 weeks. He crashed on my couch. I barely knew the dude lived there. He'd be up and out the door before I left for work. Sheets and blankets on the couch would be neatly folded, his bags would be stacked in a corner, and the bathroom would be same as it would have been if I was the only one living here. He knew I was doing him a solid, so he was respectful of my home and my space. One would think that if you and your family were technically homeless, that you would not be such inconsiderate slobs. Critical lemon _ 4072 op. Your buddy had common sense and decency, my SIL not so much. Update 2. Yesterday was a long day at my in-laws. We went early to get it over and done with. My in-laws started with the guilt trip first. They mentioned that they would take them in until they found a place, but due to Phil diabetes it wouldn't be good for his health. I told them to tell their daughter to parent her children so they wouldn't run around amok like monkeys. That way they could stay with them as they have spare bedrooms. That didn't land well with SIL. She went on a tirade of how I have always been jealous of her and that I was trying to drive a wedge between her and her brother. I told her she didn't like her own life, so me being jealous of her and her life was a stretch that required suspension of reality. She asked my husband if he was okay with me telling him what to do with his family, as he always stays out of my family's business. She told him to lay down the law and tell me that his cider and her family would stay as long as IT took them to find a new place to stay. My husband was having none of that. He told her that the house was mine just as much his, and it was a 2 yes and 1 no deal. Just because I was stay at home now didn't mean that I didn't contribute to buying the house when I was working. The younger brother and his wife said they wouldn't be able to host them as they had his mill staying due to the baby. The older ones mentioned the refurbishments. Both the younger and the older one's wives said that I was making it up about the cleanliness, as she always kept her own house clean and kept their places clean. They told me to suck it up and act like family. I told them I wasn't there to argue about her cleanliness, as I saw what I saw and her brother was witness to it and had to clean it up. He confirmed that he did and that I wasn't making it up. My SIL slipped up and said, "Why did you clean it up?" to her brother, because according to her I was meant to clean it up. Either she is the dumbest bitch alive to admit it, or she knows she has the whole family in her pocket. Either way, I made it clear she wasn't going to stay with me, and because she got along much better with everyone else in the family, they would figure out something around their own lives. My husband told his niece that she was old enough to clean up the remaining mess, but she said no. Her father jumped in and said, "She is your niece, but my daughter, don't you dare tell her what to do." It got heated between them, so they both had to walk it off. I told her and her husband that the only reason me and my husband were there was to get money back for the bin we had to throw out due to her sprinkling biohazards around the house. She laughed in my face and said it would never happen. I said, "Fine. I hope you realize that when I threw you out I didn't pack all your belongings." I still had her daughter's Switch, her husband's and her 2 younger ones' tablets, and some of her jewelry, and a few other bits and pieces, as it all happened so quickly that day. It would all be sold to recuperate my cost. We left, but she was yelling loudly about what she would do to me if I dared to sell anything. My husband has my back and he said, "Go ahead and sell whatever you need to." Later on they kept texting my husband to do them one last favor by putting up with her for a few months until she got back on her feet. I told him that no matter what I wouldn't agree to let her slobby husband and her horde of children back in. They texted me too, guilting me about his niece's education.